often talk about truth and often about beauty and about love, but can you also talk about the good with the big G related to this teaching? That's actually the first question, and the second one would be how this ideas or this knowledge, how would you integrate it in teaching to students? So maybe the first one, the good with the big G. How does it fit into this teaching? Is it like also? Can you say it's a byproduct of truth?
Yes, what we consider to be good would be anything that, any activity or behavior that came from and therefore expressed this understanding. That doesn't mean to say that what is considered to be bad is not included within consciousness. Of course it is. Everything is in consciousness. But what we consider to be good would be, in this context, that which expresses the understanding that we are speaking of here. And that which brings this understanding out into some aspect of daily life. What was your second question about teaching? How to integrate this understanding with teaching? Do you mean teaching what? What kind of?
I'm a philosophy teacher, teaching students which have no background at all in this matter, but I like teaching ethics, for instance. So
yes, well, so what we're talking of here is the ultimate philosophy, or the perennial philosophy, as you know. So ethics in this context, or morality, would be any kind of attitude or conduct that expressed the understanding we're speaking of here. When St. Augustine was asked, how should one live, how should one behave? It was the same question about ethics. What is good, what is right, how should we live? He just said, love and do whatever you want. Of course, what he meant by love was realize your shared identity, realize your shared being with all objects, animals and selves. If we do that, we can't go wrong. So it's not necessary to have a list of 10 commandments, because all the 10 commandments are basically expressions of the same understanding. Love and do whatever you want. The 10 commandments are there. I don't mean literally the 10 commandments, but a set of rules and conducts are there, are needed in society, because in society we don't, our society is not based on this understanding that we are speaking of here, and therefore there need to be rules and regulations. There need to be guidelines. But if it is clear that our own being, that all things and people and animals share the same being, and if we lead a life that is consistent with that understanding, you can't go wrong. Because you literally feel that all others, objects and animals, are yourself. So what you do to someone else, you do to yourself. Would it be possible to knowingly do harm to anyone or anything that you consider to be yourself?
No.
No. People only do harm to animals and others because they consider that they are separate from themselves. Therefore, their pain is not my pain. I don't mind if they're suffering because I'm not. So you have to feel separate from an animal or a person to do anything that would cause it harm or pain. So but that's you're a philosophy teacher, so you're in a beautiful position where you can infiltrate this understanding into your curriculum. Of course, I'm sure at your university you're not really allowed to talk about these matters, but
yeah,
you
that's
can.
That's why it's in between. That's the difficulty. If I hear myself talk using the word love, and see some reactions, I feel, oh God. So it's a bit tricky. Yeah.
Love is not considered a suitable topic for a department of philosophy.
That's
I mean,
yeah.
what do you talk about? You're not allowed to talk about love. I presume you're not allowed to talk about beauty. I guess you're allowed to talk about truth.
Beauty and truth is easier than love.
Beauty, you're allowed to talk about beauty?
Yeah, it's easier to talk about beauty.
Okay.
And
But why would love be excluded from a philosophy course?
asking the question is answering it. I don't know. Yeah, and I mean, I think you know why. There's no why, but it's like that. It's like that.
Wouldn't that be one of the central questions of any true philosophy? What is love? I mean, is there any experience in life that we have that is more important than love? Has anyone here ever had an experience that was more important than love? No. So surely love would be the main topic. Love, truth, beauty. Wouldn't that be the main topic for discussion?
I use the word compassion, which is
But compassion relates to the way we behave, compassionate behavior. We say someone behaves with compassion, but love is more essential than compassion. Or you could say compassion was love applied. But if we don't know what love is, we can't know what compassion is. You can't discuss compassion without discussing love. But it's a challenge for you. You're part of a university, so you have some guidelines, some limitations as to what you're allowed to speak of. And what you really want to speak of is what we are speaking here. So that is a challenge for you to weave this understanding into your lectures without getting fired. Did you ever read Sophie's World?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a beautiful example of somebody teaching philosophy to a child and tailoring their understanding to the child and expanding the child's mind, gradually expanding the child's mind and using all the Western philosophers to expand her mind. So it's possible to show how Spinoza and Kant and Heidegger and Berkeley and further back Plato, Parmenides, they all came very close. So that would be a nice challenge to have. start with an observation with your students. Everything you have ever experienced exists. The sight of this room exists. A thought exists. A toothache exists. The sunshine exists. The sound of my voice exists. Everything that we ever know or experience exists. What is existence? It is fundamental to every experience. Every experience shares it. What is that? What is being? Oh. How come it is possible to know experience? How come experience is known? And with what? What is it that knows experience? What do we mean by I? We have been calling ourselves I all our life, but everything we know about ourselves, our thoughts, feelings, sensations and perceptions are continuously changing. So what does I refer to? We called ourselves I when we were 5-year-old girls and boys. And 10, 20, 30. What is this ever-present I? What does it refer to? How could consciousness come from matter? Our world culture is founded upon the presumption that consciousness does come from matter, but nobody has any idea how that happens. Nobody has ever seen it happen. Why do we believe that? Our culture is founded on that idea. Why? These are the questions I would ask my philosophy students. Because if they can't ask these questions, then the other questions they're exploring are trivial. They'll never get the answer to any more relative question until they can answer these fundamental questions. Everything that is known or experienced is known or experienced by the mind. And therefore the mind superimposes its own limitations on everything that it knows. We think that the world, reality out there, is limited, temporary and finite. But the mind through which the world is perceived is itself limited. And therefore everything that that mind knows will share the limits of the mind through which it is known. And therefore we cannot know anything about the nature of the world until we know the nature of the mind. In other words, until the mind knows its own nature. Therefore, what question could be more important in philosophy than to ask, what is the essential, irreducible nature of mind? Until that question is answered, nothing can be known about reality. So these are the questions that these are the topics that I would set my students to explore.
You might get fired then, maybe.
You'd get fired?
No, you might. Yeah, you might. I think.
Did you say you might get fired?
Yeah, all people here, we're interested in this kind of question.
I know. I'm spoiled. I know by the quality of the audience, and I'm not bound by any institution, so I'm free to say what I want. So either you have to risk being fired, but if that's, if you need your job for financial reasons or whatever, then you have to be more subtle than I need to be. I don't have to be subtle, I can just say things straight. But you have to be more subtle, you have to weave these questions in. You find a way of just sailing within the parameters of the institution to which you belong. But always pushing the boundaries, always provoking your students to go further. And then in private with your students, when you're having conversations with them, You can sense where the openness is in the student and go there. Encourage the make it clear to the student that everything he or she knows is known with their mind. And therefore the mind superimposes its own limitations on everything that it knows or experiences. Therefore, to explore anything before exploring the nature of mind will never give satisfactory results. It's why scientists still have no idea what the world is made of, because they've been exploring the world before they explore the nature of their own minds. They will never find out what the world is made of until they discover what their own minds are made of. And many scientists are beginning to come to this conclusion. So I know you know the story of the Oxford professor. I know what you're up against. What these institutions, they're like old dinosaurs. People have so many egos are invested in these institutions that it's very difficult to operate outside the very narrow parameters. But you do just have to be skillful, which I'm sure you are.